Hey everyone, we are so excited to the reaction in the community for the pod. I need to take a moment of your time to tell you to please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or hit the follow button on Spotify. We are in the humble beginning stage of our show and establishing a listener base is of paramount importance and will help us determine the frequency of future episodes. Thanks and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to Neuse Little Podcast, an audio program discussing the almost 50-year history of Neuse Little Theater and the backstage antics and stories that come along with running a community theater in a small town. I'm your host, Matt Gore, and we are coming to you from NLT's stage and base of operations, the little log cabin located on the banks of the Neuse River in Smithfield, North Carolina. We lovingly refer to it as the Hut. Oh, Mita. We're back. We're back. I really want to play Aerosmith's Back in the Saddle again, but even if you play like 15 seconds of it, you could get sued. So Just imagine that song playing in the background. Okay, I am so happy to finally on the podcast to be promoting a show that NLT is actually rehearsing. It's finally here.
We're last in the line, but yeah.
And we had always talked about what would eventually happen when the podcast would shift into more of a promotional podcast instead of an interview podcast. And this is going to start that transition ever so slightly. We'll still have interviews with NLT favorites along the way, but once we start back up and running, there's going to be some more interesting podcasts, with like crew members and cast, and we're going to try to mix it up and keep it interesting as we go. But for now, Mita, tell me about this new show at NLT.
Well, it is called The Last Train to Nibroc, and it's written by Arlene Hutton, and it's about two young people in 1940 going east from Los Angeles, California. One is recently discharged from the Army Air Corps, and the other is a young woman who's coming back from visiting who she thought was going to be her fiance, and they both have reason to sort of doubt where their future is going because their plans have changed so quickly. But it follows them over the course of about 2.5 years. Their friendship, which blossoms into something else, and so it's about the world forcing you to grow up a little faster than you intended and having to, I'm trying to think of how to phrase it, how you have to sort of learn to, life doesn't follow your path that you plan. You have to sort of allow yourself the flexibility to find the happiness in sort of how things turn out.
Best laid plans and all that.
Correct.
Yeah. Speaking of best laid plans and all that, you're directing this show and you kind of hit the ground running, and we were talking off mic about all the stuff you were having to do, and it was a lot in the time we had to do it, because we kind of decided to do this not too long ago. You guys have had rehearsals. This is what, your second or third week of rehearsal? Second?
We had 2 weeks of rehearsals, so
Okay.
We're going into third next week. So
What's it like hitting the ground running on all of this?
It's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Because we've been talking for a year now, going, oh, we can't wait till we're back on stage. We can't wait. We're ready. And no, we weren't ready. But no, I've been here pretty much every weekend, or at least 70% of the weekends since the whole, the quarantine started and everything shut down. But I've sort of forgotten how to do things, because there's things that used to be second nature, and planning and all of this sort of stuff that I've had to relearn, like posters and publicity and tickets and all of that sort of stuff. Sort of everybody's like, oh yeah, we do have to do that, don't we? So it's very interesting. It's almost like we're starting from scratch, only luckily we have a history on our side that we kind of know how things work. We just have to remember to do them now. So.
Yeah, it's just a matter of just getting that train rolling again. It's been quiet for a while.
And everybody's made plans, and everybody's sort of gotten their own lives and their own thing. We sort of all dispersed well, I say dispersed, but we've all sort of gotten into our own bubble, into our own routine. And so this was not on the radar for a lot of folks. So they had things planned that this wasn't planned, in their schedule. So it's sort of like, please come help me.
So yeah. I understand that you're saying that it's just a little bit overwhelming at this point, and
A little bit, yeah. Because I think people forget how much work there really is in it. Because, like I said, there's box office and ushers and tickets and posters and programs and light and sound and backstage and set construction, and and there's all of these things. And
not to mention this on-demand thing and the cameras,
Right, yeah.
and and that whole aspect, that whole aspect by itself is a job.
Yeah, and learning that has been fun.
Yeah. So when does the show actually go up?
The dates are March 19th, 20th, 21st, 26th, 27th, and 28th, and the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of April.
So basically the last 3 weekends in March heading into Easter weekend in
Correct.
April.
We are doing a show on Easter, so if you're stuck at home, and that's when we are going to do on demand for that last week. So
Yeah.
if you don't feel comfortable coming to the theater, even though we're going to have very limited seating, and everybody needs to be masked, our cast will not be for most performances, but on Sunday afternoons we will be for those who prefer it, and what we will have on demand for those that do not feel comfortable being in the theater but want to watch it. So we will have it recorded. But that will be from the 27th, March 27th through April 4th, I believe is what our on-demand dates are.
So that last week
That
you
last
can
week,
watch it.
If you call and make a reservation, which I highly recommend, because if you want to see it in the building, because we're only going to have about 20 or to 25. And they're $13 in advance, with reservations $15 if they're available if you walk up, and the on demand is $15, but that includes all of the streaming fees.
Right. And basically you guys douse down the theater and the hut with the safety juice.
Oh yeah.
the Ghostbuster pack.
We do. We have the Ghostbusters backpack, and we've got gallons of the disinfectant.
Right.
So.
Well, we're really looking forward to that, and I'm so glad that we're actually getting up and running and doing something. And this play actually sounds really interesting. It sounds like almost like a two-person romance play, and
It is. It's a little bit of a romance kind of idea. And it's only 2 people, so God bless them.
yeah. We'll talk more about that when we have Dylan and Annabeth on at the last part of the show. What's the rehearsals been like? I mean,
It's been interesting because we've not been able to get together as much as I would have liked to. But so I'm hoping they've been learning their lines when they're not here. But the problem with a 2-person show is you got to work. If one person's not here, that's 50% of the cast. So it's hard to, if you've got 20 people in a cast, you can kind of work around everybody. But so we've just had to sort of get together when we can get together and work the show. So.
Well, I mean, there's pros and cons to that.
Right.
At the same that you can kind of, the scheduling's easier, but at the same time, if someone drops out, you can't you can't rehearse that night.
Right.
Is there? I mean, there can't be a whole lot of blocking in this show. I mean,
No, actually, it's a very simple show. There'll be a bench in the middle of the stage, and they sit for quite a bit of it because they're on the train, and then they're in a park, and then they're on the back porch. So it's fairly simple blocking, but and again, it's going to be. It's really only one act, so there's 3 scene changes, or 2 scene changes, but. It's only going to run for about an hour and 15, so it's not so bad.
Honestly, it sounds like the perfect play to have.
Well, and that's what I thought, yeah, because it was simple, simple to stage. You only have 2 actors, so it's You don't have to worry about too many people being on the stage. You don't have to worry about everybody being in each other's face. You don't have to, so that was the reason why. And it's one that I had on the back burner for a long time, and I really like the show. So that's the reason why I was wanting to do it. So.
Yeah, it sounds like a perfect opportunity.
And they've been doing a good job with it. So.
Well, I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see any show at NLT, but this one looks to be very interesting indeed. And we'll have some information coming up on future shows and all that. That's still being nailed down. We haven't really finalized that yet. This is kind of like almost. Would you agree, Mita, that this is almost like a little tester show to see how it goes?
Yeah, I think so. It's like the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah. Let's see how this one does, and we'll, but the audience wants to come back. There's nothing in me that doubts that they want to come back. It's just you have to mix that with also people doing it again for the first time in over a year.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I mean, and I don't want to make anybody feel bad about it, because quite honestly, I did the same thing. Because when I was like, yeah, I'm ready, let's do this, and I got in here, I'm like, oh my God, how much work is this? Mm-hmm. So what was I thinking? This is a bad idea.
We'll have to get you some backup.
Well, Steven, it's like.
Yeah, I was wondering, because I haven't seen a whole lot of Steve. You said he's been busy on the weekends.
Yeah, he's helping out at St. Anne's with the COVID vaccines. He's directing traffic and giving out clipboards, and so he spends most Saturday mornings doing that.
As much as we need him here, that is much more important.
It's very important.
Yeah.
But we spent like all of last Saturday, because he had last Saturday off. They didn't have a clinic last Saturday. We spent all of last Saturday making these 2 black panels you see on the wall over here. All day is that's what we spent.
Interesting. That's not going to project anything, is it? Or...
No. We're good. We need 5 more.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, that sounds like a good arts and craft project for a Saturday afternoon. Okay.
It was very entertaining. It was you learned a lot about your significant other when you have to do a project like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That is the same for me and Tamara. Although I did successfully put together a fireplace with only cursing like 2 times, so I think that's a win. Isn't that a win?
You did better than we did.
Well, if you're cursing, you're doing it right. That's what my grandfather always said. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break right there, and then we're going to bring on Annabeth Clark and Dylan Atwood, and we're going to talk to them about their perspective from rehearsing this new play, and we'll pick it back up there. All right, and we're back. Sitting here with me today is 2 people I'm very excited to have on the podcast. I do believe they have the distinction of being the youngest people we've had on the podcast, since most of our interviews have been with our older members and people who've done it for a while. And that's an interesting perspective I'm hoping to talk to them about. But also, they have the distinction of being the first cast. Yes, the first full cast of the next show that's going to be at NLT, and that is Train to Busan. No, I'm just kidding. Last Train to Nibrok. I keep calling it Train to Busan by accident. No, that's a zombie movie on Netflix. So sitting here with me today is Annabeth Clark. Hey,
Hi.
Annabeth. What's up? And Dylan Atwood.
Hi. Hello.
What is up? Thank you for coming on to the podcast today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. Thank you.
We're going to talk about Last Train to Nibrok here in a second, but first we kind of want to get like a little bit of background in there. We're going to start with you, Annabeth. Now, your first show here at NLT was what?
The 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee.
One of my absolute favorites. Was not involved in any way, but I love that show. So you played one of the kids. It's adults
Yes.
playing children.
Yes, I was Marcy Park.
That's right. And she is, explain her. She's very sullen and very dour.
Yes, she's good at everything, perfect at everything, gets the highest grade. She's the best at everything. So coming into this spelling bee, it's just another spelling bee for her. She's bored with it. Mm-hmm. She's expecting to win it. And along the way, she kind of has a lot of self-doubt and has, I guess, an epiphany and rediscovers herself.
Right. See, you thought you'd be bad at this, Annabeth. That was excellent.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
That was so good. That was an excellent answer. That show in particular, I felt had a real energy to it, and it also felt I could feel it. Not only was there everybody having a really good time on stage, I could feel everybody had worked really hard.
Oh yes, definitely.
And that's not to say that we don't work hard on every single show, but sometimes there are just shows and casts that have an energy, and you can kind of tell it was. I'll say it was a little bit next level for me, and I was.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, I was very impressed. I was overall very impressed with the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, and that's coming from the guy who's not a huge musical fan.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. That is kind of petered off in years, and I can respect musicals. However, that one just had a little bit of extra flavor that I liked to it.
Thank you.
So next was Mamma Mia. Now, we've covered Mamma Mia a fair bit on this podcast, but let's get real quickly a young person's perspective. That was your first show here, Dylan. What was that like?
Oh, it was like summer camp. It felt like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're from the Goldsboro area, and I've done a lot of shows with CST, and I also done some stuff with Benson Little Theater. And you were in my last show, Rope, actually.
Yes, I was.
And as the Butler Sabot, it did very well, I might add. So what kind of got you to NLT? What brought you down to NLT to try out for Mamma Mia?
Oh, I did Oklahoma in the spring. That was with Center Stage in Goldsboro. I did that.
And you were...
I was Allie Hackman that.
You were you were awesome.
Yes, I was
there,
very good in that.
So you just heard about it during kind of like you'd heard about it during the run of that show, and like, oh, I want to go check out NLT, the Mamma Mia type thing, because it was Mamma Mia was a show that had just been available to license for community theaters, and so it was kind of like a hot show, and kind of like everybody wanted to do it, and NLT was one of the ones that managed to snag it up first, so everybody was kind of like, whoa, they're doing Mamma Mia. I've heard of that musical, you know. So what was that like?
Well, actually, so when I first ever heard of Mamma Mia, I did not have any interest in doing Mamma Mia. It sounded like just pretty lame. But then I'm a big ABBA fan, and so I knew this girl, this actress Annabeth Clark.
Hey.
Oh, hey, Annabeth.
Oh, hey.
Hey, didn't see you there. But yeah, I heard from her about NLT, and that it was a cool place, and I'd seen actually Vintage Hitchcock.
Yeah.
That was the first show I saw here. And after coming and being in here, I knew I wanted to come and work on this stage. And but yeah, Mamma Mia, the cast was like a family. And I know no one's really talked about it on this podcast, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I wish we had gone for 3 weeks with that show.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys are going 3 weeks with this show, which is a new thing at NLT, and makes perfect sense because of the limited audience and stuff like that. So that's going to be like a. What were you telling me outside, Dylan? How it's kind of compare it to like the last show you did?
Yes. So Sabot in Rope was a very minor character. I had a lot to do in my scenes, but I only had about maybe three appearances on stage, and 2 of those times I was walking as quick as I could across stage.
Yeah.
But that show, I had about 13 lines in the whole show, and that was like a 50-yard dash compared to doing this, which is like a 10K. But it's exciting, and that pushed me just as much as this is going to push me.
Yes, I love it. I love seeing actors stretch themselves and getting outside of their comfort zone and not being complacent. You know, I feel like whenever you become complacent, you know, you stop learning. You know, you stop growing as an actor, and even as a person in life. Always learning new things is very important. So, moving on from Mamma Mia, and I remember Mita talking about this show, and I remember I was at the board meeting where it was decided we were going to do it. And we talked briefly about the characters in the show, and I was like, well, it looks like you got to cast some actors, you know? And, you know, we left it at that. And then about a week later, you know, I was just like, you know what? Honestly, Dylan would be pretty good for this role. And so I texted Mita right fast, and I was like, you should maybe check out Dylan for this one. You know, he's really good to work with. And then she texted me back 5 minutes later and said, oh, yeah. I already cast him. We had read through last night. And that actually was the same thing with Annabeth, too. That came along later, believe it or not. I was like, have you thought, she's like, because I was like, I found my guy, now I got to find my girl. I was like, have you thought about Annabeth? And then 2 days later, she was like, oh, yeah, Annabeth. So I had actually thought of you two for these roles, and Mita had already cast you, so that was like a cool bit of synchronicity right there.
Well, thank you. That's very flattering.
It's very scary.
Yeah.
You don't want to just...
Very flattering.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is nice. It is nice to be offered a role.
Yes.
Because we didn't hold auditions, because we wanted to, limit. We wanted to limit any possibilities of it being unsafe. So we decided to just go ahead and do a pick 'em, and that usually doesn't happen here. So, but congratulations for that.
Thank
Thank
you.
What's it like from your perspective, Annabeth? What is it like, coming in, because you're used to being in musicals.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. What is it like switching from mostly musicals to this very much a play?
It's been pretty tough. I'm used to these long, like, grueling hours of rehearsal with, like, music rehearsals, dance rehearsals, like all of this stuff and me not really having a lot of lines, not really being the main character, the main focus. So not only is it completely different, like the type of show it is, but the type of character I'm playing too is completely different. So rehearsals have been a lot of like me trying different things and then it not really working out and going, like considering the time period and considering what's going on in the world and the character and all of this stuff. So it's been pretty interesting to face a show like this and a character like this in such a intense way, I guess.
Do you feel more, for lack of a better term, exposed maybe? Like
Oh, yes.
You don't have like the music and the dancing to rely on.
Right.
It's just you and the dialogue.
Right. And not only is it without any music or dancing, and a lot of it is relying on me. It's like only me and Dylan
Yeah.
and like no one else.
Yeah.
So.
You don't have any. You're working without a net.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that to me as an actor, that would be exhilarating at the same time terrifying.
Yes.
But a great challenge that
Yes.
that'll truly help you grow. Now, so for Mita, what's it been like working with these young people?
It's been good. They've actually been very receptive. I was kind of excited because it's been hard to get back in the director groove because it's been so long. But they've actually, when we've delved really deeply into the character aspect of it, sort of like where they're coming from, what they're doing, what they're thinking, and so they've been very receptive, and it's really nice because sometimes you get folks who are like, I don't want to do it that way. I just want to recite the lines, and
No.
they've been very good about sort of taking what I tell them to heart and working on it, and so I'm good with that.
to me, as a director, the character work is my favorite part. It is that point, like 2 weeks into rehearsal, 2 weeks before you open, type of deal where you're working the characters and stuff like that. That's why I always push my people to get off book as soon as possible, so we can work those character moments and stuff like that. That's always my favorite part. And well, so Dylan, heading into that, the character work and stuff like that, you weren't familiar with that type of rehearsal process when you first came to Neuse, and honestly, you really didn't work on running a scene until you got to rope, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So that was your first experience with that. Tell us about that. Tell us about how you have to adjust when it just doesn't work and you have to fix it.
Well, so it's funny how acting is like a double-sided thing where it's exciting and it's a rush, but also you're filled with self-doubt at all times. But I don't know, you've got the confidence to think you're good enough to go for it, but you're also filled with self-doubt.
Yeah.
But I love getting notes because, and I look at it, the more notes I get that the first way I did it was not quite right, the farther I get from me, and the closer I get to the character, and I can kind of separate more, and I don't pick up on all the subtext all the time. I didn't have any training professionally like that.
All right. Well, that's part of working with the director and figuring out that subtext. It's so easy, for example, me to tell you the subtext, but if you figure it out yourself, you'll learn it. It'll stay in your head better. You'll learn and use it in the next show. And the you're right. Almost every great artist I know has, at times, crippling self-doubt. I think everybody in here included. But it's about having the confidence to know you can overcome that, and knowing that while you may not be a perfect person and probably far from a perfect actor, you have confidence in your craft. You have that muscle memory. You've done it before. And that's just something that comes along with doing it a lot. And that is something I felt you've come a long way as an actor from what I've personally experienced with you.
I found that pretty much every role I get now scares the crap out of me, even just being a French butler, because I know in my heart that I'm not a butler, and I'm not French.
I know in my heart I'm not a butler.
But that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. What's it like doing that character work for you, Annabeth?
It's very interesting. Like I said, this is a character I haven't really.
Describe her for me.
She's tough. She's
No, describe her for me. You described her when I saw you the other night at Play On.
Oh no, I can't.
I can't say that on here.
Yeah.
I'll say it. Annabeth, no, I'm just
she's
kidding.
very things are very black and white. And like I said, considering the time period and everything, it's just she's Christian. She's has her mind made up about everything, and I think Dylan's character is her gray, and her starting to grow and change, and it's very interesting. I guess you just have to come see the show and see how she grows.
You're doing fine. How old is your character in the play?
I think she's around my age. She's 21, 22 as it goes on.
So she's at this point in her life where she's kind of figuring out the person she's going to be.
Right.
And she's kind of exposed to different paths in life that she wasn't exposed to probably growing up.
Right, and she had a very definite idea of what her life should be, and Mita had described in the show, that it was completely thrown off its tracks. But like a train,
Yeah.
LAST train. Yeah, and as she's learning that things aren't always perfect, and she's not always going to be perfect, she grows in that way, and he helps her see that. So,
Describe your character for me. He has epilepsy. He has a disability.
Yeah, he. Well, I think all his life he wanted to be a fighter pilot in the Army or the Air Force, but he finds out he has epilepsy, but he doesn't know what it is. He only knows it as the fits, because this is during World War II, and really throughout the whole show, I don't think he ever really knew the full extent of what was going on. I don't know if the doctors ever fully knew.
So he's probably misdiagnosed, or he hasn't been diagnosed, and they're just writing it. The Army or the Army Air Corps is writing it off as, oh, this guy is he's not fit for duty. He's just got the fits or PTSD, or they didn't have categorization for PTSD back then.
I mean, he might have leprosy. We don't know.
Leprosy. Yeah, that is a problem. You would not be. Yeah, that would be an issue. I'm sorry to say. So what you're saying is, there's these two people on a train that had their life planned out in a very certain way, and life has decided to lob a grenade on that.
yes,
And
yes.
now they both have to figure out how to pick up the pieces.
Yeah, that's
Nice.
that's Act 1.
That's excellent. All right. So, what are some other shows that you really enjoy doing, Annabeth? Let's move on from Last Train. Let's talk about some other productions you were in that you find particularly. I know you always talk about you were in Little Women.
Oh yes, I loved Little Women. I played Beth.
Was it the musical or the play?
It was the musical.
And where was that at?
That was at Sampson Community Theater in Clinton, North Carolina. I did most of my shows there, so I've been in big productions, like I said, big musicals. Hairspray, Footloose. I was in Hello Dolly before everything closed down. I have been in some little plays that were supposed to be like silly, like at my school. But nothing like this. This is very different than what I'm used to. So it's been really very fun and interesting and challenging. And
Tell me how Mita contacted you about the role. Tell me how it started. And what was your reaction?
well, actually, I had seen your show Rope. And I was on the way home, like telling my sister, wow, I wish I had an opportunity to do a show like that, like a serious dramatic play. And because I, have just been involved in so many musicals and big productions, and like, oh my gosh, that was so entertaining. And like, I loved watching that. The next day, Mita had contacted me and like, hey, if you're interested, like I get if you're not, but we're doing this show at NLT. And it was just like this perfect opportunity. So I told her, yes, I'm totally interested. I'm so down for that. I'm so excited for that. So,
Well, we're excited to have you back.
Thank you.
Annabeth, and we're excited to have you back too, Dylan.
Yeah, I'm excited to be back.
You guys, you guys got a fair bit on your shoulders.
Oh, yeah.
All three of you. It's a very intimate group that has a decent amount to pull off in a short amount of time. And I, for one, can't wait to see the show. Are you guys rehearsing with masks? Are you guys rehearsing without masks? What's it like?
We're rehearsing with masks.
Yeah, we've been rehearsing with masks.
And but during the actual show, we're not going to have masks unless it's those Sunday matinees, correct?
That's the plan, yeah.
Right.
Because it's just the two people and we're far enough away from the audience, we're going to be more than 6 feet from the audience. I think we're good without having to wear a mask. But for those that feel more comfortable if they were wearing masks, we're going to do that for the Sunday matinees, or at least face shields, And but we're going to hose everything down with disinfectant. We've got 2 hand sanitizer stations. We ask that everybody coming to see the show wears their mask during the production. There's no intermission, so there won't be any concessions sold, so nobody can go out and mingle. And we're only going to have 20 to 25 people in attendance, and everybody will be socially distanced seating with their group. So we're going to assume that if you make 4 reservations for your group, you've been around each other, so you're a household, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So you'll be sitting together. So we're going to semi-assign seats. So just to make sure everybody has their little bubble they can live in.
In other words, NLT is doing everything it possibly can to present you a live show safely under the current governor guidelines in North Carolina right now. So we're doing everything we can, people. It feels like things are looking better on that type of front. Lots of vaccines rolling out.
Yep, my parents have both gotten their second shot, and I think they're coming up on their quarantine period, so they should be good to go. So hopefully everybody who is eligible for a vaccine has started getting their vaccine. So.
Right. And but you still got to wear your mask. If you come to see the show, even if you got your vaccine, you still got to wear your mask. Them's the rules. All right. Thank you, Dylan and Annabeth, for joining us here on the podcast this evening. It's been very interesting. I've enjoyed talking with both of you, and thanks to Mita for doing a shit ton of work.
It's all right. I'm breaking the whip out in a little bit. So.
Yes. Let's see if we can't help Mita out here just a little bit with the logistics and stuff like that. But I can't wait to see the show. Mita's a great director, and you guys are great actors. So
thank you.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah, no problem. And believe me, I look forward to see what you guys do in the future.
Thank you.
I'm excited to show it to people.
What's that?
I'm excited for people to see this.
Oh yeah. I'm excited too. It sounds like the right story for the right time. It really does. It fits in there very nicely. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up there, people. I hope you join us for the next episode of Neuse Little Podcast. Again, if you listen to this episode and like it, give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, maybe in a review, even if you feel like it. And subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, and hit the follow button on Spotify if you use Spotify. So please don't forget to do that. It really helps us out. All right. Credits for the show. Your host and creator is Matt Gore. That's me. My producer and editor is Toole.
That's me.
Music is by Cody Walker. Please go look up Cody on Cody Walker Music on YouTube, and he's also on Cody Walker Music on Facebook as well. He's local, so and he's got a couple of albums out. So why don't you give him a listen? Easy listening, John Denver type of guitar voice. That Cody Walker. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.